There was a moment when the screen didn't want to feel like a machine. It opened into blue skies, it glowed with green hills, it put glass over everything. It added water droplets to buttons. It made icons shine like candy, and tried to convince you that the future wasn't metal, not wires, and not surveillance. The future was clean air. The future was a leaf reflected in a monitor. The future was a transparent window floating over a calm desktop, as if the computer had somehow learned how to breathe. That world has a name now, Frutiger Aero. But most people didn't call it that while they were living inside it. Back then, it was simply what new technology looked like, when technology still needed to earn your trust.
Frutiger Aero is easiest to recognize by its surface. Glossy bubbles, blue-green gradients, lens flares, glassy app icons, auroras, waterfalls, white plastic, underwater plants, clean skies, and a suspiciously perfect amount of dew. But the name is doing important work. Frutiger points toward humanist typography, airport signage, public information, letters designed to guide people gently through a complex world. Aero points toward Microsoft's glassy Windows Vista and Windows 7 interface, where the desktop seemed to become a transparent layer of light. Put those two ideas together, and you get the promise of the era. Global technology that felt legible, fresh, friendly, and almost natural. Not natural, almost natural. That almost is the whole story. Frutiger Aero became powerful because screens were moving closer to the body. Computers were leaving offices and dens. Laptops were landing on kitchen tables. Phones were sleeping beside beds. Game consoles were becoming family objects. Wi-Fi routers were blinking in living rooms. Social websites were turning friendship into infrastructure. The machine was no longer something you visited. It was becoming the room. So the machine changed clothes. It covered itself in grass, water, bubbles, clouds, lens flares, clean white plastic, and friendly typography. It made global connectivity look like a blue horizon. It made data look weightless. It made networks look breathable. It made software feel like a place where nothing bad could happen because everything was shiny, rounded, and reflecting the sky. This wasn't decoration, it was persuasion. Before Frutiger Aero fully arrived, Apple had already trained people to accept liquid software. Mac OS X Aqua made the interface glossy, dimensional, and almost edible. Buttons looked like gel. Scroll bars looked polished. Windows cast soft shadows. The computer was still a tool, but the interface had the emotional logic of candy, water, and touch. That mattered because the late 90s and early 2000s had made technology personal through color and transparency. The iMac made plastic friendly. Digital cameras made screens part of memory. MP3 players made gadgets intimate. Broadband made the internet feel less like a waiting room. Frutiger Aero inherited all of that and softened it further. It didn't say, the future is a spaceship. It said, the future is a spa with a login screen. Microsoft put the fantasy directly on the desktop. Windows Vista arrived with a promise of safer, easier, more visually rich personal computing. Under the hood, the desktop window manager changed how windows were drawn. Instead of every application simply painting itself onto the screen, windows became surfaces that could be composited, layered, blurred, animated, and previewed. On the surface, that technical shift became a mood. Windows looked like glass. Toolbars glowed. Borders blurred whatever was behind them. Flip 3D turned open programs into a stack of floating panes. Thumbnails made the taskbar feel alive. The desktop no longer looked like a flat bulletin board. It looked like an atmosphere. A transparent window is a strange object. It's a barrier pretending not to be one. Windows Aero used that contradiction beautifully. It gave the computer a body, then made that body look like air. Of course, the promise wasn't always smooth. Vista could feel heavy on the wrong machine. Paradise lagged.
The glass demanded drivers, memory, graphics power, patience, and exactly the kind of invisible complexity the interface was trying to hide. That tension is why Frutiger Aero is interesting. The beauty was real, but it was also a cover story. It sold lightness at the exact moment digital life was getting heavier. More accounts, more updates, more devices, more settings, more permissions, more reasons to wonder why your computer suddenly sounded like a tiny airplane. Frutiger Aero didn't remove complexity. It made complexity sparkle. At the same time, the iPhone turned software into something you touched with your thumb. Early mobile design loved skeuomorphism, which means digital things borrowed cues from physical things. Notes looked like paper. Calendar looked like an object. Buttons looked pressable. Sliders looked slidable. Icons sat under glossy panes like little sealed pieces of candy. This wasn't accidental decoration. A phone with no physical keyboard could have felt alien. A glass slab asking you to trust invisible software needed metaphors. A button needed to look like it could be pressed. A page needed to look like it could be turned. A weather app needed to perform weather, not just report it. Frutiger Aero helped make the touchscreen emotionally believable. It gave your hand a way in. Web design was doing the same thing. Web 2.0 was full of shiny badges, rounded corners, pillowy buttons, reflective logos, friendly login boxes, orange RSS icons, startup mascots, soft shadows, and blue gradients that seemed to say, nothing about this database should scare you. Social sites wanted to feel like neighborhoods instead of extraction systems. Cloud services wanted to feel like convenience instead of dependency. Startups wanted to feel like fresh air instead of venture-backed behavior modification. The button glowed because it wanted to be clicked. The logo reflected because the company wanted to seem clean. The website rounded its corners because sharp edges would have told the truth too early. This is where the we belongs. The we wasn't glassy in the same way Windows Aero was glassy, but emotionally, it lived in the same world. White plastic, simple channels, rounded menus. Weather, news, photos, me characters, motion, family rooms, bowling with grandparents. It didn't ask you to master a machine, it asked you to swing your arm. The Wii Remote made computation feel like play before the word interface could ruin the mood. The console was a computer pretending to be a social invitation. It fit the larger Frutiger Aero promise. Technology would enter the home, but it wouldn't dominate the home. It would be friendly. It would be clean. It would understand you. For a brief moment, the future didn't arrive as a command line or a black mirror. It arrived as a bowling ball made of light. The cloud is one of the most revealing symbols of the era. The word cloud sounds soft. It sounds natural. It sounds like weather. It sounds like something above you that has no weight. But the cloud was never a cloud. It was hard drives, racks, cooling systems, contracts, passwords, sync failures, terms of service, and buildings full of servers. Frutiger Aero softened that truth. It let infrastructure wear the costume of the sky. This is why a service like Mobile Me feels so perfectly placed in the era. The dream was push email, contacts, calendar, photos, and files moving smoothly between devices, almost magically. The messy reality of synchronization was translated into a gentle blue and white promise. Your digital life could float. Cloud computing didn't have to look like a warehouse. It could look like a morning. You can see the same emotional logic in late 2000s corporate green technology ads. A hand holding a leaf, a laptop in a meadow, a city under a blue sky, a glowing network line over a blade of grass, a phone beside a water droplet, a globe made out of light, a family smiling at a screen that somehow looks like it's producing oxygen. These images weren't just pretty, they were trying to resolve an anxiety. Could we have more devices, more internet, more power, more speed, more screens, more everything, and still feel clean? Frutiger Aero answered yes, or at least, please believe yes. It made contradiction peaceful. It made the artificial look organic. It made consumption look sustainable because the wallpaper had grass on it.
One strange thing about Frutiger Aero is how often it feels empty. There are landscapes, bubbles, icons, abstract globes, clean airports, glass buildings, and perfect skies, but not always people. The fantasy isn't a crowd. The fantasy is a world where technology has already cleaned up after itself. No tangled cables, no hot batteries, no dead pixels, no moderation cues, no ads following you across the internet, no warehouse worker packing the device, no e-waste, no server farm, no account lockout, no one crying because the sync failed and the photos are gone. Just a leaf, just water, just a button with a shine on it. The absence is part of the comfort. Frutiger Aero shows technology after the labor has disappeared. Eventually, the emotional weather changed. After the 2008 financial crisis, after smartphones accelerated, after social platforms hardened into feeds, after cloud services became obligations, the old blue-green optimism started to feel too innocent. The machine no longer needed to pretend it was visiting the house. It had moved in. Design responded by changing its clothes. Flat design didn't arrive only because designers got bored of shine. Interfaces had to scale across phones, tablets, laptops, watches, and responsive websites. Brands needed icons that could survive any size. Developers needed systems that were easier to maintain. The old textures began to look fussy, slow, and fake. Microsoft pushed a cleaner language with Metro: typography, tiles, motion, content. Apple's iOS 7 made the turn impossible to ignore with translucency, thin type, and stripped down icons. The interface stopped saying, "Touch this object." It started saying, "Navigate this system." So why does Frutiger Aero feel powerful again? Not because everyone truly wants Vista back. Not because glossy icons were always better. Not because the old internet was innocent. It wasn't. It comes back because it belongs to the last moment when mass technology still felt like it was asking permission. Today, digital life often arrives already decided. The phone updates, the feed refreshes, the subscription renews, the app changes its layout, the algorithm explains nothing. The cloud isn't a fantasy anymore. It's the place where your life is stored by companies you can't really leave. Against that, Frutiger Aero looks almost tender. It's corporate, but it's trying to be kind. It's fake nature, but at least it knows nature is worth imitating. It's a lie, but it's a lie about technology becoming lighter, cleaner, and more humane. That's the secret of Frutiger Aero. It was never simply about bubbles, glass, or blue-green gradients. It was about a cultural negotiation. The digital world was moving into everyday life, and everyday life wasn't ready to surrender completely. So technology performed softness. It borrowed water because water has no corners. It borrowed grass because grass forgives the machine. It borrowed clouds because clouds make infrastructure sound weightless. It borrowed humanist type because the future needed signs people could read without feeling stupid. The machine tried to smile like nature, and for a while, it worked. The screen opened into air. The icons gleamed. The button promised to help. The desktop looked like a window instead of a wall. Maybe that's why the aesthetic still hurts a little. It reminds us of a future that wasn't true, but was at least polite enough to pretend it wanted us to breathe.